welcome to the Mindset RX series of the Alpha Movement podcast. My name is Tom Foxley and I help functional athletes gain the champ's mindset. Now, time to be completely upfront and honest with you. The next, however long this podcast takes, is going to be directed solely with the intention of convincing you to invest in my Mindset RX coaching certification. Yep, that's right. I want you on the Mindset RX coaching certification. No matter if you are an existing CrossFit coach, no matter if you have any intentions to work for me. By the way, if you do want to work for the Mindset RX brand or movement, however you want to define it, if you do want to do that, the Mindset RX coaching certification is an absolute prerequisite to do so. No matter if you already work in the kind of the mental side of things, I think this would be a brilliant addition to whatever you're doing right now. And even just for a second, consider if you are wanting to go on your own mindset journey for to go through and to master mindset as a whole. Imagine if that's you for a second. Imagine what that's going to do if you want to completely bolster your game, but you know all the ins and outs of how to coach yourself too. So this is open to all of you. Let's backtrack though. Before we get to exactly what the Mindset RX coaching certification is, and it's going to be MRCC from now on, because otherwise this podcast is going to be about an hour long. Before we get into what the MRCC is, let's backtrack to how this all came about. And essentially, it starts with my journey into coaching. I began coaching as I was going through training to become a Royal Marines Commando reservist. So being a reserve or a reservist, you essentially got a real job and a part-time job. I didn't really know what to do with my life. I was fascinated with training. I was already CrossFitting, and I was like, shit, this makes a common sense really to become a CrossFit coach, to become a personal trainer, and to kind of work in this industry. And I had no idea where it was going to end up. But anyway, I started going down this path, and I got qualified, started getting all right results from my clients and the athletes I was working with, because I started working mostly personal training before moving into CrossFit, and it was going fantastically, but I felt there was something missing. And there was, don't get me wrong, for most people I was getting great results, but there was always, great results isn't quite good enough for me. I want fucking awesome results for the people that I work with. And there was this kind of 20% missing from most people, the kind of the finishing touches, the things that would really make people completely content. So I began investing into, for example, Kelly Starrett's work. And there's nothing against Kelly Starrett's work. It is wonderful, truly brilliant stuff, and so needed in CrossFit. But the mobility side of it, and yeah, it helped. It helped a lot of people, but not quite in the same way that I wanted people to be changed, essentially, to be helped. So I started doing that, and it was great, but it didn't quite pan out the way I wanted it to. And then I started working with, or investing a lot of time and money learning about nutrition. I went full-on zone diet for a while. Then I went full-on paleo. And then I went full-on track your macros. And I kind of went through all these different phases. And I was seeking knowledge, and it didn't really change anything. Meanwhile, I was going through my own mindset battles, as I have been since I was probably 14, 15. Well, since my heart condition, I'm not going to get into now. I was tracking and kind of struggling with those kind of things. So I was starting to kind of learn a bit more about mindset, but I couldn't really see how it was going to work. I was super skeptical of it. I thought it was a lot of, to quote me back then, a lot of hippie bullshit. That's what I would have definitely referred to it as back then. And then I began, I was working with my athletes and began working a lot more in CrossFit at this time, and I couldn't quite get the change that I wanted until I started dropping in tiny bits of what I was learning myself, tiny bits about goal setting and how it actually works, tiny bits about motivation and why motivation is mostly bullshit and we need to rely on a mindset instead, bits about subconscious versus conscious mind, things like this. I kept on dropping in, And I realized that it was these conversations that were creating the most change with people. It was these conversations that were truly driving something wonderful. And it was like, to cut it short, it was nothing about learning more knowledge. I couldn't like give people more information, but I could change the way they think. And by changing the way they think, it began to adapt their behavior. And because their behavior adapted, they got phenomenal results. And then I started doing this in a more systemized way with some of my own personal training clients and a couple of the athletes I was working with at the time. But when I look around CrossFit boxes right now, when I look around any training facility really, when I look around mixed martial arts places or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu places, I see the same things. I see athletes being very hit or miss, and athletes is kind of my catch-all phrase for anyone who's training to become better. It's very hit or miss, whether they succeed, whether they enjoy their sessions, whether they're happy or sad. They're kind of relying on this luck approach. It's like trying to win the lottery of happiness and mindset. They seem to think that, oh, today's how I feel, and then that's just it. I can't change it. There's nothing I can do. They struggle with fatigue a lot. And this is where I first can transfer this to CrossFit, because I look around CrossFit boxes especially, and CrossFit is essentially the sport of how much you can suffer. How much can you really go through, and how good are you at coping with suffering? So they're really struggling with fatigue, and they resist it. And it's really difficult to see. Fear as well. The fear of being injured, fear of box jumps, fear of certain movements. I was working with an athlete recently who dropped 110 kilos on his head. That produces a fair amount of fear. But I see it in all the boxes around. Fear of success, like, because you have to change, people become fearful of success. Fear of failure too. I see the whole fear of failure throughout CrossFit, throughout mixed martial arts, throughout Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I see that fear of failure, and slumps as well. Let's talk about slumps. Like, you go through a few, like, you have a low patch essentially, and some people just resist it instead of riding the waves. They allow themselves to be sucked under by this huge wave of like, I'm not good enough, I'm not performing well enough now, and they find themselves battling this instead of riding with it and kind of riding out the waves and instead of making them more turbulent. Injuries. Let's talk about injuries for a second. The athletes that I see who get injured, they are again resisting this concept. They don't have any kind of mindset tactics to help them accept it. They accept the fact that, yes, I'm injured and I probably need to do something about it, and they carry on training, get even more injured. And this isn't a lack of knowledge. They know what they should be doing, because they go and see a physio straight away, or they go and see a movement specialist straight away. But they are resisting it so much that they need to change their mindset in order to change the outcome. Let's talk about expectations as well. How many athletes do you know, or people that you train, who have this huge expectations, and then things don't go right? They expect things to go the way they want instead of hoping they'll go the right way. They are so expectant on the result, it limits them, and they begin to put too much pressure on themselves. And then, like, perfectionism as well. Perfectionism is so linked into this. So just look around a CrossFit box, and how many people getting frustrated with snatching, dropping a barbell and going, oh, for fuck's sake, and kind of kicking things. And there's a great example in the Commonwealth Games with someone who I think was a Canadian weightlifter who pretty much threw his toys out the prams. Poor guy. So perfectionism is a huge piece of things. And self-criticism too. This is very much linked in. So many athletes are so critical of themselves. And I look around facilities and I see all of this stuff. So in January 2017, I officially went forward with Mindset RX. It was still kind of under the Alpha Movement brand, as this podcast still is, but Mindset RX began to become more of a thing. Initially, I was solely working with functional athletes, and it went brilliantly in a way that I could never imagine it growing, because quite frankly, people need it and they didn't realize they needed it. And it's grown and it's exploded. And the athletes that work with Mindset RX, because it's not just me anymore, the athletes who work with Mindset RX now are seeing the most ridiculously huge benefit. It's crazy to see how much people grow, and the things that overwhelm me or make me incredibly proud when I get messages like one I did get yesterday. It's a year since this lady worked with me, and she's still crushing her goals and still improving, and she puts that pretty much solely down to working on her mindset. It's so good to see. And because of the success of Mindset RX, I need new coaches to come in and work and be incredibly well trained and begin to take on the kind of demands that I can't quite keep up with right now. I'm struggling. I'm kind of I've got so many athletes to work with that it's beginning to get difficult. So I need a core group of coaches working under Mindset RX to help push forwards and to help more athletes, essentially. The issue is there was no way of getting people trained up to become a Mindset RX coach. There's no external qualification that I said, oh, you'll need this to get. Because whilst there are great mindset coaching qualifications out there, and whilst there are great fitness coaching qualifications out there, there's not one that blends the two perfectly. And there's not one that has the nuance that I require in my coaches. And there's not one that understands compassion and understands the principles of coaching in the same way that the Mindset RX system does. So I need a bunch of really highly qualified coaches who are going to just flourish under this conditions and help these athletes become their limitless potential. So that's why I created the Mindset RX coaching certification, or MRCC. This doesn't just apply to people who want to become a Mindset RX coach, though, because like I said, it's a prerequisite. If you do, you absolutely have to go through this, because I need to be able to drop you in and know that you're going to do the best job possible. So you need to go through the Mindset RX coaching certification to do that. But CrossFit coaches, like if you are working in a box, if you own a box, and you see those things I talked about before, like struggling with fatigue, fear, injury, self-criticism, slumps, perfectionism, if you see essentially the signs of a poor mindset, we need to start addressing that. We need to start building a proper approach into our coaching systems. What about nutritionists? Nutritionists are generally very good with understanding the importance of mindset. Unhealthy attachments to food, but it goes so much deeper than that, and it becomes such a much more important thing to get right. So we need to, for nutritionists, we need to understand more mindset, and beginning with mindset and nutrition coaching is going to blow you away. Personal trainers too. If I knew what I knew, if I knew back then what I now know about mindset, man, the results I would have got for people would have been ridiculous. And it wouldn't have been forcing them into a hole either. It wouldn't have been forcing them into kind of, this is how you have to do mindset. It would have been subtle. And then existing coaches, people who are already coaching a mindset, this is a whole new approach. And although you'll recognize the principles, this is a very different way to approaching mindset to what you've seen before. So here's what it is. The Mindset RX coaching certification is a comprehensive 15-week guide to enhance the coaching of mostly CrossFit athletes, but athletes as a whole. It begins with a turbo quick run through of my flagship program, the Inner Athlete Performance Camp. And this is for two reasons. The first of which is it shows you what it's like to be a beginner, which is so important in mindset training. We often forget it. But the benefit that you guys will get from it is you get a condensed version of my 12-week flagship program, additionally chucked in for free essentially. It's you get to upgrade your own mindset and start at such a huge level. And then if you're one of those people that I spoke about right at the beginning, just an athlete that wants to upgrade their mindset, this is how you go for it. You really start by working with yourself, and then you can start to build on that too. So you can upgrade your mindset with a complete run through, although condensed run through of the Inner Athlete Performance Camp. It's in a group situation. So you're not required to just do this work by yourself. The group will keep you accountable. There's a support group that's run mostly through Facebook. There's group calls. There's also times to get your individual questions answered, but I'll get onto that in a second. But being in a group, the motivation aspect of it, or mindset aspect of it, is less of an issue because you're going to be driven by the accountability of everyone else around you. So there's no reason that you're going to slack because everyone else will be driving you through and helping you go through the process. The next, or the first or the second phase we go into actually is the knowledge and the principles of what we go into. Like, so we need to give you a foundational basis of what is mindset. Where does it come from? What kind of psychology goes into this? What kind of philosophy goes into it? What kind of neuroscience do we need to understand to understand how we're rewiring people's mind? We need to have this background in order to create the change. So when you get athletes eventually coming up to you and saying, but I don't understand what's happening here, you can say, well, this is the background. This is how your mind is rewiring. And this is what's happening to change right now. So the first phase is the knowledge and the principles. We then go into teaching you the system, the Mindset RX system. And like, as a cheat sheet, I can't tell you how valuable this is. It's the process that athletes go through. And sometimes they take a slightly different route, but it's always on a similar path. They will start in a testing phase, and we need to test people's mindset. So we go, like, what is a good mindset? How do people go through this? And I'll teach you how to identify the pointers in between, like what is a good mindset? What's a bad mindset? What could be limiting people? We test mindset just the same way as you would with as a squat program. Let's put it there. And we take you all the way through to how do we make this a very sustainable process? How do we continue their improvement after their time working on mindset? How do we make this part of their life? How do we seamlessly integrate this into their performance and their progress as a human being and an athlete? So we go through that. And then how do we make it sport specific as well? I teach you the system of making this sport specific, all the tools there that you can just drop in, so you're not worrying about, oh, is this the right thing to do? Or is this the wrong thing to do? I teach you the tools of creating change with athletes. This is all an online learning course, so you don't need to be anywhere at any time. What this also means is if you can't be there for the call, I'm happy for you to catch up. Obviously, we'd love you to be on the call, but all the calls will be recorded. They get posted in the group, and you can catch up in your own time. In terms of your time commitments, we're looking about an hour to an hour and a half a week tops. You can definitely get through it quicker, but if you want to really, really excel in this, we're looking at about an hour's work per week, give or take. So your time commitments are completely open because you can do this whenever you want. If you have only 6 o'clock on a Friday morning to catch up, you've got that time because you can catch up what's happening there. And there's going to be a couple of minutes of check-in every day, but if you don't have 2 minutes to check in, then this isn't your priority right now. Because this is it's a fairly big investment. I get that. It's a kind of, I'll talk about the price in a second, but because it is a fairly big investment into your future, I want to make this accessible to everyone. So I've created monthly payments. It's a payment plan that means you can spread this out over up to 10 months. So you can work around any issues that you have around the kind of the investment side of it, and we can create a payment plan that works for you. So there's that side of things. We'll also, just to kind of backtrack a bit, add into what to look out for as a Mindset RX coach. So what are the key clues that people are giving you? What clues they're giving you that they're not even aware of? What's their language going to look like when they're in certain phases? What things do we need to look out for? And what things are often overemphasized in their importance? And like, what's the change? How can we make this change with the athletes? And we will build in a complete approach to assessing an athlete's body language, their cues that they're even unaware of themselves, as well as the language they're using and how that relates to their goals and like all this kind of stuff. So essentially how to coach, what the principles of coaching that you need to follow, and what the principles of creating change that you need to follow. So that is a fairly comprehensive description of the MRCC. The price for it is going to be £1,500. So £1,500 for full access to the Mindset RX coaching certification. As I said, not only are there payment plans available, but these go up to 10 months. So we can get you started with just a £150 deposit whenever you're ready. So we can go through that. In addition to this, if you're not 100% ecstatic with this, I'm offering a 100% guarantee. So a full refund up to the finish date of the course. Like if you really wanted to, you can go through the whole course, and then one day before the end, no questions answered. No questions about this. I'd give you a refund, because if you're not 100% blown away by it, yeah, you've got your money back there straight away. So there's a full refund available. The Mindset RX coaching certification, the second run through, is going to cost more. Quite frankly, my business mentor is refusing to let me to kind of put together any less, because he thinks it's so valuable what we've created together. So the Mindset RX coaching certification number 1 is going to be the cheapest it's ever going to be. So there's another reason to get on board. It's super easy to get on board as well. All you need to do is email me, tom@mindsetrx.com, and we can either go straight ahead, get your deposit down there and then, and I'll reply within 24 hours, definitely, because I check my emails every 24 hours. Or we can hook up a call if you still have any questions about this whatsoever. So the start date is going to be April 30th. The applications for this close on April 25th, 2018. So you're going to have to move quickly. If you want to be a part of the Mindset RX coaching certification, you will have to move quickly, because we've got 15 days right now. So just over 2 weeks. So if you're at all interested, all you need to do is shoot me an email, tom@mindsetrx.com. You can find me on social media as well. So tom@mindsetrx.com. We can get moving forward straight away with your progress into the Mindset RX coaching certification. Any questions too, email me, and I'll hopefully hear from you soon.